Let's talk about a security guard's break. Seems pretty straightforward, right? A moment of rest, mandated by law, totally necessary. But what if I told you that very moment, the time they step away to grab a bite or just, breathe, is actually the single most dangerous hour for the entire site they're supposed to be protecting? It's a crazy thought, but today we're going to unmask this hidden danger.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. We'll kick things off with a wild, true story about a massive theft. Then we'll get into the core idea, this paradox. After that, we'll explore the 4 kinds of breaks, from the perfect to the absolutely disastrous. And then, the best part, we'll use this thing called an accountability matrix to figure out who is really to blame before we zoom out and look at the big picture.
All right, first up, let's dive into a real-world story. A heist that is so high stakes, and it all comes down to a simple, everyday lunch break.
So picture this. It's a cool, kind of rainy Tuesday. We're at this huge commercial warehouse. Officer Ben has been on his feet since the crack of dawn, logging trucks for 8 solid hours. He is just completely drained, and his break can't come a second too soon. Okay, so here's how it all went down. At exactly 1 p.m., Officer Carla shows up and properly relieves Ben. He heads off to the break room, completely off the clock, just like he's supposed to. But then, 30 minutes later, a van rolls up. The paperwork looks legit. I mean, really legit. It's forged perfectly. Carla, who's still just getting settled into the shift, is completely fooled. 2 minutes later, that van drives away with a fortune in electronics. And the craziest part? No one even has a clue it happened for another 6 hours. Just gone. So of course, once the dust settles, the blame game begins. And the big question is, who takes the fall for this? Is it Officer Ben, who was on his legally required break? Is it Officer Carla, the new person who got tricked? Or is the real fault lying somewhere else entirely? This one question, folks, is what this entire explainer is all about. This story just perfectly illustrates this deep, fundamental problem in the security industry. It's something we're calling the guard's paradox, the idea that the essential act of resting is what creates the biggest risk. And here it is, the core idea. The break paradox is this really terrifying truth. The second a guard steps away for a much-needed rest, the defenses of that post are at their absolute weakest. It's like walking on a tightrope between basic human needs and hardcore security. I mean, think about it. On one side of the coin, you've got the absolute need for rest. You can't be hyper-alert for 8, 10, 12 hours straight. Your brain just gets fried. Labor laws know it, biology knows it, you need a real break to stay sharp. But, on the other side of that coin, a guard on break means a weakness. The post is either handed over, which is a risky moment of transition, left totally empty, or it's being watched by a guard who's trying to scarf down a sandwich while keeping an eye on 6 monitors. And let's be honest, they're doing neither of those things well. So how do we even start to make sense of this mess? Well, thankfully, the source material gives us this brilliant framework. 4 clear-cut categories that every single break falls into. First up, we've got category A, the ideal. This is the gold standard, the way it's supposed to be done. A guard is fully relieved by another qualified officer. They are completely off duty, legally and operationally free. Just like Officer Ben in our story, his break was a perfect category A. And in this case, the accountability for what happens next shift entirely to the relieving guard. Then we get to category B, the gray area. And honestly, this is where things get really murky, and it's where most security guards actually live. This is the eat at your desk break, the stay on call break. You're not really resting, right? This leads to burnout, to mistakes, and it's often a flat-out labor law violation. And when something goes wrong here, well, the blame gets shared between the guard and the manager who created this risky policy in the first place. Okay, next is category C, the fatal mistake. Now, this isn't about the system. This is about deliberate misconduct. We're talking about sleeping on the job, leaving the post to run a personal errand, or getting lost scrolling on your phone. These are conscious choices, and when they lead to disaster, the accountability lands 100% on the individual guard. No question. And finally, there's category D, the management failure. This is when the entire system is just broken from the top down. Think about a supervisor scheduling the only 2 guards on site to take their breaks at the exact same time, or a company that automatically deducts pay for a break that the guard never actually got to take. In this scenario, the guard isn't the problem, they're the victim. The accountability here points directly at management. So, now that we have this incredibly powerful 4-category framework, we can finally do it. we can unlock the verdict and pinpoint exactly where the responsibility lies.
Let's go all the way back to that question from the beginning. But now, instead of just guessing or pointing fingers, we can answer it with some real precision.
And here it is, the accountability matrix. This thing is a game changer. Just look at the difference. In a category A, an ideal break, the guard-on break has zero accountability. None. It all falls on the reliever. But jump down to category C, the fatal mistake. Now the guard-on break has the primary accountability for gross negligence. And what about category D, the system failure? The guard's accountability is minimal. They're basically a victim. The real problem lies with the supervisor's bad scheduling and the manager who needs to fix the whole broken process. This matrix clarifies everything.
And that brings us to our final and maybe most important point. Because this isn't really about finding one person to blame. It's about understanding the real mission here. When you look at the big picture, what you start to see is that these security failures, they're rarely just one person's fault. Guards usually don't fail because they're lazy or because they're bad at their jobs. They fail because the system fails them. They're overworked, they're pushed into those gray area breaks where they can't actually rest, and they're put in impossible situations that basically set them up to make a fatal mistake.
And that leaves us with this really powerful quote from the author, Melvyn Valenzuela. Success without integrity is failure in disguise. It's a huge reminder that a security operation built on cutting corners, on ignoring the basic human needs of its officers, well, that's not success. It's just a failure in disguise, waiting for the next lunch break to happen.